Dan's up again. He says, how many GMBs per manager account is acceptable? Well, it depends, Dan. It depends on what you're doing. Like, what type of GMB assets are they? Are they real bona fide, like genuine businesses? If they're genuine businesses, there's no problem adding a manager and managing the genuine businesses from a manager account, right? Because they're real businesses. There's no problem with that at all. Now, and Marco and I have slightly differing opinions on like for lead gen assets, but personally for lead gen assets, I like that are, guys, let's be 100% clear here. Let's not sugarcoat this. When we're doing lead gen GMB assets, they're spammed, right? They're spammed assets. That's what they are. So let's be clear about that. So when you're doing lead gen stuff, then I don't recommend using a manager account, because that connects, like that creates a footprint, right? You can connect different locations. So what I'm doing currently now is, and I've tested, because we're scaling this lead gen asset building process so much right now, we're testing all different types of configurations. And I've got several out there right now where I'm doing location clusters, which is multiple locations or assets within a service area, like a radius. A 20-mile radius is typically what I'm doing right now. So I'll secure many assets within that 20-mile radius. And so some of my location clusters are managed under a singular manager account. In other words, each location is owned by a separate Google profile. So it's owned by a separate Google profile, but it's managed, or there's a manager account that connects those profiles so that a manager can access them. However, like I said, currently what I've kind of shifted to now is doing everything under the owner account, or at least logging in, or if I'm going to add a manager, only adding a manager long enough to make changes to the GMB asset and then removing that manager so that the footprint doesn't stay there. In other words, like for example, one of the things we're going to be doing is providing done-for-you GMB optimization services. So we can provide an MGYB, our store. It's not available yet, but it's coming very, very soon, guys. We've got VAs in training right now to be able to provide you guys with full soup to nuts done-for-you GMB asset building. Like from verification all the way through setup and optimization and scheduling GMB posts and scheduling them to republish, to where you don't have to do shit except purchase it and then start making money from it once you monetize it, right? So one of the things that we're going to have to do is whenever we create, or somebody, typically you're going to buy the asset from us, so we create it for you, but then the VAs that are going to be optimizing it will be that asset will be, a manager will be added to that asset, and then the VAs will manage or optimize that profile, that GMB asset, from the manager account. But then as soon as we go to deliver it, we remove the manager account, right? That's what the process is likely going to be. And that way there's the owner account, and then you can add yourself as a manager if you'd like, but I would recommend using something like Browsio or Ghost Browser and always logging in and making changes to it from the primary owner account. And that way it's isolated to that one account. In other words, if you end up getting terminated from Google for whatever reason, I've got a couple assets that have been terminated recently that I don't understand why they were terminated. But again, they're spammed assets, so I'm not going to complain too much. I'm just going to move on and build another one, right? So my point is, if you end up catching some sort of penalty and it gets terminated, then it's going to be isolated to one account and one account only. Okay. So in the past, I've always said that it's okay to add yourself as a manager to GMB assets and then manage, make changes and things like that through the manager account. But that's typically when for real businesses, or maybe the occasional lead gen asset. I've never done it at scale like we have been over the last few weeks, and I'm really concerned because these are black hatted Google or GMB assets. I'm really worried about potential footprints, and so I'm trying to do as much as possible to reduce footprints, and that means not using manager accounts when if possible. And if you're using a good browser keeper app like Browsio or Ghost Browser, you should be able to accomplish that. Now, Marco, I know you have a slightly different take on it. Do you want to share yours?
Yeah, we have managers doing it all. The owner never ever goes back in, and that's how we do it. It's as if an agency were doing the work for that Google My Business listing, which I think.
So you have different manager accounts, though, is what you're saying?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. We have, because we have a whole bunch of VAs.
Gotcha.
right? And so, but they all get spread out. We don't have one VA that does, for example, what you always talk about, tree service, right? Then it's not a bunch of clustered tree service GMBs that VA is doing. They're out everywhere. They have a bunch of different niches that they handle, and the team lead will spread them out. Like she'll give them, okay, you get three of these, you get three of these, you get three of these, and then she'll come back and she'll start adding them again until we get to a certain point, and then we don't add any more to those. We'll open a new account, and that account will manage the next set, and they won't all be in one niche. And I think that's just perfectly legitimate. In fact, I haven't seen any problems with any of the stuff that we're doing getting suspended.
Yeah, and I haven't had anything suspended through a manager account. So, again, I've had in the past, I've had a manager account suspended, and it didn't affect any of the GMB assets because that it was managing, because the asset was owned by a different Google profile. So as far as I know, that's still the case, but I don't want to create a known footprint between assets. So what Marco just said, Dan, just to clarify, is that he'll still do. He's still. They're making changes. His team is making changes to GMB assets through manager accounts, not through the owner accounts. But there's not a footprint between the manager accounts and the assets, because he's randomly selecting different Gmail accounts to be added as managers, and then they manage more than just one type of vertical or industry. Now, again, that's Marco's got a team. Dan, I'm not sure if you have a team or not, so that might not be the most efficient way for you if you don't have a team. If you have a team, then maybe it is. Also, it depends on, again, like Marco said, if you're dealing with multiple industries, that makes it easier to do that, because each manager account can be managing multiple types of GMB assets. In other words, different types of industries, which would make sense because that acts very much like an agency that would be managing different client businesses, right? So what Marco's saying is absolutely valid. I completely understand his method. Me personally, in my business, I am targeting one industry. So we're targeting, like for my business, it's tree service industry. For contractor media, it's remodeling and general contractors. So because of that, we're targeting one industry. I don't have that, even if we had multiple manager accounts, every manager account would only be managing similar type of properties. So that doesn't work for my setup. Again, you're going to have to customize a setup based upon what your specific business is currently, and then select which is best. And for me, for my business, because I'm targeting one industry, the best so far, according, or at least what I think to be the best method, is doing everything through the primary owner account. Or if I'm going to add a manager, it's only temporary, long enough for the manager to make whatever changes they're going to the GMB, and then that manager gets removed, so that it's not a long-term manager connection, if that makes sense. Okay, so again, really take what Marco said and take what I said and determine which is the better fit for your business, and then apply that method. Okay, it's a great question, by the way, Dan.
I'm also about to put it to the test, because I'm about to close on a really big deal where we're talking about just thousands of GMBs, and it's in one vertical, one niche, and I'm gonna see which of the two methods works best for longevity.
Yeah, and guys,
I'll report back.
That's what we're trying to do here. I mean, we're trying to develop processes to scale all of this, which is really what Tofu Live was all about. And so, we're really trying to develop all these processes and done for you services, because we're building out our own. Like, guys, we're not just creating these services to sell them to you guys. We're creating these services for our internal use. But since we're going through all the trouble of creating all these processes and training virtual assistants to do all this stuff, because we're building our own businesses this way, we practice exactly what we preach, guys. But since we're going through all this trouble anyways, it just makes sense to also, because we're going to have all the processes in place for training for all of this, to be able to provide that to you guys, right? And so because of that, we're doing all this testing right now. Remember, a lot of this is new at this level, like at this level of volume that we're doing. And so we're trying to figure it out as we go. And as soon as we get good information, we share it in the appropriate places. like local lease pro, local GMB pro, and in the mastermind. Those are the 3 places where this stuff's getting shared, right? So if you want to stay on top of it without having to do the testing yourself, then just come join us. And the mastermind's probably your best bet, because that's where the conversations are held on, on a daily basis.